Thank you again for joining me for another day text. Monday, April 1st. We're working our way through the letter of James. Still in chapter 2. We're going to dip into chapter 3 today as well. We'll finish the rest of chapter 2 and then start chapter 3. We're just going to do 4 verses this morning. There are 2 verses that sort of, I will say, linger from the prior day text. But we'll go ahead and read them as an intro to chapter 3. And then we'll consider chapter 3 further tomorrow as it talks more about the tongue and the power that it has. Okay, and then after today's text, I'll give some updates. We'll talk a little bit more about this coming weekend CW Jaw Talk show, which will be about the Christian celebration or ritual involving the bread and the wine. The event that Jesus instituted as part of the Passover with his early disciples. So we'll talk more about that. I've got some updates on other things as well. So let's get to these texts. Excuse me, and then we'll talk about that some more. Okay, we'll go ahead and start. So James chapter 2, I'm going to read verses 25 and 26. That'll finish off chapter 2. And then I'll read verses 1 and 2 of chapter 3. And then we'll talk about it, make a brief application. We'll be on our way. Okay, James 2:25. In fact, in a similar way, even Rahab the prostitute was shown to be righteous from her works, as she first welcomed the messengers, and then she sent them away by a different path. Let's talk about that for a moment, because remember previously in our prior day text, we were talking about how faith is shown by its works. It's not just a mental acceptance. It has to actually be demonstrated in some way by our actions. And so when we discuss Rahab, I put a link in the description below to a prior video I did that documents the accuracy, the historical accuracy of the account involving the city of Jericho, in which Rahab lived on the outside wall. And so it corroborates the account that describes all the things that took place there. But Rahab, a prostitute, mind you, was someone who showed faith by helping the servants of Jah when she didn't have to. So you see, it's not so much about what kind of person you are always. I mean, it is. We have to answer for our mistakes and choices. But that does not mean we're all sinners. So we should never think we cannot help those who serve Jah, that we cannot praise Jah the Father just because we've done bad things or chosen our own course to a large part so far in our life. We can always do good, and we should. Okay, verse 26. For just as the body without spirit is dead, in the same way also faith or belief without works is dead. So it's not living, it's not alive. If you don't have works, it's not the kind of faith that will help you survive. People get confused about it though, because they think that the alternative is to believe that your works are meriting your righteousness, and that's not true. Your works demonstrate the faith that you have, which must be alive in order for you to stay alive. So let's get back to the text, verses 1 and 2 of chapter 3. Many of you must not become teachers. I wonder why he says that. He says, my brothers, because as you have learned, since we will receive a more strict judgment. A lot of people love to be teachers, because of the so-called prominence that it brings. People look up to you and you're recognized as someone sort of authoritative. People like to have that. Good morning, everybody. So there are a lot of people that love to be in that position, to be the teacher and the one looked to as such. But it says right here that many of us should not be teachers, because we're going to get a heavier judgment. We know more, we teach more, so we are responsible for more. So it's not like you can just jump into the teaching role and expect to gain some prominence and it not come at a cost. Okay, this role, this teaching that we do and that I do, comes at a very high cost, personally and otherwise, but the reward is so much greater not only now but in the future, because we know this life is not all there is. People are dying every day, and usually in the service of something not very noble, not very righteous. So we choose to become teachers or to put ourselves in positions of difficulty for the things that are righteous, things that are good and that are going to actually help people, not just satisfy our own selfish desires. If you're going to become a teacher just to satisfy your own selfish desire for prominence or glory or whatever, then you're in for a big, bad surprise, because that's not how Jesus was, right? He was very humble. What did he say? He washed his students' feet, and he told them, do you see what I'm doing? This is what you're supposed to do to each other. He was the teacher, and much more. Yet how many Christians today do you know who wash each other's feet? Just something to think about, because I don't think we show nearly the kind of love that Jesus showed and told us to follow. I know it's not easy. It's often very difficult, but that's because we make it that way, and we follow the world, which doesn't care. But if we really cared about our brothers and sisters, then when we saw them suffering or in pain and doing hard work, I don't think we would hesitate very much to wash their feet or help them become better. But we don't, because we've become so divided that it's hard for us to even agree on what to teach, let alone agree on how to treat each other. But that's why we do these texts and talk about these things, so that we can remind ourselves of what we need to do in the simplest of ways. Help each other. Do the things that Rahab did and welcome people. If you know they're in danger, send them on the non-dangerous path. Don't set them up. A lot of people today, they love the setup. They love hurting people and seeing how much they can get away with. You don't get away with anything. Big bad surprise coming for all those who think that they get away with something. Doesn't look like anyone's ever gotten away with anything. They're all dead, and we're next in line. But we serve the God of life, so we don't have to die. We just know that the consequence of the choices we make leads to death, and we're here now. So it's our turn. So when we make choices about whether or not to become teachers or anything else, we should remind ourselves of the importance of what we're doing. It's not just something where we can do something and expect to be given praise and glory and have a better life now. No, you might, but really you're going to attract persecution by those who don't agree with you. But you're praising Jah, the God of all things, and he's allowing these things to continue in a world that dislikes him. So you really have to set yourself up as an object of dislike if you're going to be a teacher of the word of Jah, because the world is not interested. They love all these other things that put you at odds with them, even though we try to be nice, right? They want to do these other things that we cannot follow them in, because they're offending the Father, and they're putting themselves on line to go straight to death. And we don't want to go in that line. We want the other line that puts us in the line for life, the way we were made, not to die and do all these terrible bad things on our way out. But notice in verse 2 of chapter 3, so we see that you have to be cautious about whether you want to be teachers. It's not just this glorious option and people look up to you, and no, it's not like that at all. In fact, if anything, you get more criticism than anything else. But that's okay, as long as you have reasons for what you're doing and you believe that you're doing the right things and you're helping people. Your intent is to do good, not to damage other people. Then you keep going. You keep going no matter what, and you trust in Jah and you accept the judgment. Try to correct your mistakes so that you don't mislead people. In verse 2, it's the one we didn't read yet. It states, "For we all make many mistakes. If someone does not stumble in his speech, then that man is perfect and able to control his whole body." And tomorrow we're going to talk about how we can't even control the tongue. Tiny little member starts all these big fires. But then again, it can also do good things, and it can bring about righteousness for people who are bringing trouble to you. Sometimes we have to stand up and use the power of the tongue to fight lies and deception and people who put themselves above everybody else. I'm not supposed to do that, but they have a very hard time being humble. So they elevate themselves above everybody, and then they hurt them, and then they lie to themselves to make it better, all this stuff. But that's not our way. We don't want to live a fantasy, a pretend life that we have to keep lying about to make ourselves feel better just so we can sleep at night. That's not a real life. Real life is doing what you were made to do and being open and honest about it, not only to fellow humans, but to God, so that you have a clean conscience and you don't walk around in life with this air of judgment hanging over your head. It's what all these people have. It's what drives them crazy, is they know what's coming, but they don't want to do anything about it. So what can you do? So these are some good texts for us to keep in mind. And tomorrow we have a little bit longer section, and it's going to develop this idea of the power that is in the tongue and how we really need to be careful when we use it, because it can get us into a lot of trouble and cause a lot of destruction. But that's just how things are today. We're human. We make mistakes. It says right there, and we know it too. And so it's good to know that the scriptures understand our condition, and that we can read them and know that those who wrote them went through the same things and had to deal with the same types of situations. That's why it's so important to consider these texts, because they're telling us the things we need to know about, that other people knew about and had to use to get through what they were going through. We're going to need the same thing. So this is a good closure to chapter 2, good intro to chapter 3. Tomorrow, a little longer section on the tongue. And we'll keep working our way through James all this week. I'm going to be here all day. I've got some videos. I'm going to catch up on some videos. I know we've got a couple garbage dumps, actually, so stay tuned. But as you know, I had to deal with a lot of other things last week, and they're still in process, unresolved, so I got to deal with some of those people. Here comes Dada. He's very, very interesting the way he opens the door. Joji will just come and knock it right open, but Dada, come on, Dada. He might hop up here. You never know with Dada. Come on, good boy. Dada. Now I gotta show you. I made such a big deal. It's okay, Dada. He never. Dada is such a good cat, you know. But he's a little shy. He doesn't always like the spotlight. It's okay, Dada. Let me let him kind of do his thing. So, okay. He's a good boy. Now, all right, we have these garbage dumps coming. We have the day text this week. And I'm just watching myself get Dada. Okay, and then this, okay, and I have the 2 parts on the Holy Spirit, CW Jot Talk. Dada is a peace. Yes, he is. Where he went? He's very quick. He comes and goes. Sometimes I see him and I don't see him and I got to go look for him. Dada is a very good cat. They're both good. I like cats. So we have the garbage dumps. I just kind of want to make sure I go over everything. Being a Monday, the week gets off, it gets busy. I have other videos. I'm going to be making clips from other videos that I did. I'm going to put up a couple clips on the Abraham and Isaac account. And yeah. And then I'm going to put up some other clips that I have on some other subjects. Racism, I'm going to do part 2 on the destructive power of racism from my open session on racism. Maybe even a part 3, a couple clips from that to continue the racism series. And then this Sunday, we're going to do CW Jot Talk number 16 on the bread and the wine and the Christian celebration of Jesus' death. And so we'll be dealing with that. And then again, I'm going to be putting up parts 1 and 2 on the Holy Spirit. They're done. I just need my youngest son's technical experience to just finalize a couple things on some of these renderings. So anyway, I'll try to get those up later today or this week. CW Jot Talk 15 parts 1 and 2. And then we should be doing day texts all week. So try to be here if you can. Otherwise, we'll just keep moving our way through the letter of James and then on through the rest of the books of the New Testament. And then we'll reset with Genesis, which should be good too. But we still have a lot more New Testament material to go through. I thank you all for joining me this morning. I'll get some more material up on the site, and then I will see you all tomorrow for another day text.